We started about 5 weeks ago, near to the beginning of lockdown. By the way, I am Rabia, if for those of you who don't know. So I'm a gut health doctor, and I'm also a yoga teacher, and I extremely love teaching breathwork. So this has been a super unique platform where Rupi and I can engage in discussion about breathwork and its benefits in recent practice. And in the last 5 weeks, we have traversed through several breathing techniques. So we started with diaphragm breathing, which we're going to revisit tonight. And we did that for 2 weeks. And within diaphragm breathing, we visited the fact that the breath has 4 parts, right? So we know that the breath has an inhale and it has an exhale. And those are the parts that we're familiar with naming. So if I say inhale or exhale, you know what to do. And that's the part that's both subconscious and can be conscious. So we're doing conscious breath work. And there's also the pause. So the 4 parts of the breath are the inhale and the pause at the top of the inhale, the exhale and the pause at the bottom of the exhale. So week 2, we visited the pause. So we did diaphragm breathing, then we visited 4 parts of the breath with the pause. And then we moved on to alternate nostril breathing, where you shut one side of the nostril at a time and inhale and exhale, which of course Rupi can't do tonight because his nose is blocked. And then the Pollard count went up and we had to let go of that one. So we did alternate nostril breathing for 2 weeks, where we built up our resilience to that. And then last week we visited Shitali or Sitali breath, which was predominantly a breath through the mouth because the weather was super warm and we were getting hay fever, nose was getting blocked. So we formed this roly-poly with the tongue, and we inhaled through the tongue, and then we held the breath at the top of the inhale, and then we exhaled. And I think that was much better. So this week we are going to visit, and I can't believe that I didn't start at the beginning of the book here, but we're going to visit Ujjayi breath, Ujjayi is a Sanskrit term, and it means victorious breath. And many of you may have heard of this breath technique before because it's the bread and butter of breath work in terms of pranayama being yogic breath work. And so Ujjayi breath, you don't need to know how to say it or spell it, but it has 2 J's in it. I'll write it in the group afterwards. And Ujjayi is bread and butter breath, so it's like baseline breath, but it's also quite a challenging breath, which is why I chose to do it tonight for our first Zoom class, because only 16 of us, so we've got plenty of space and time to explore and adventure in this breath. And it's really simple because Ujjayi is generally in through the nose and out through the mouth, but the special aspect of it is that when you inhale, you follow the breath to the back of the throat. And so your awareness is somewhere here. So where I've brought our awareness to the nose or the diaphragm previously, today I'm bringing the awareness to this like lovely gap at the bottom below the Adam's apple. And so when you inhale the breath, you find a kind of almost a restrictive quality at the back of the throat. You bring in your attention here and then you exhale. And in yoga class, the breath is audible. So if you've ever walked into a class where people are breathing really harshly, kind of like Darth Vader kind of breath, that's Ujjayi breath. And we're all in our own homes and you guys are muted, so you can breathe as loud as you wish. But we're going to practice this breath in 3 layers. So Rupi and I have been doing the 3-layer technique. So layer 1 is just permission to arrive and gentle awareness on the breath. So I will guide you through that. Then layer 2, we're going to do diaphragm breath because it's a staple. And then we're going to move to Ujjayi breath, and we're going to do 2 rounds of 5. And the 5 rounds are going to be the 2 first rounds, complete permission to breathe in and out of the mouth. And I want you to imagine that when you exhale through the mouth, it's like fogging a mirror. So it's as if you've got a mirror a couple of inches in front of the face and you're fogging that mirror up. And then on the 3rd breath, we will exhale through the mouth, and then optional to close the mouth halfway through the exhale and finish the exhale through the nose. and the last 2 breaths will be through the nose. So it's like a transition from mouth breathing to nose breathing in a kind of wave. So I'm going to guide that tonight. And it's a lot more simple than it sounds. And with your eyes gently closed and relaxed, I will follow you through.
That sounds great. What I might do is mute myself. So if I'm going to be breathing quite harshly, I don't want an echo to appear and I don't want it to distract people, but I'll still be able to hear you. So I'll unmute myself at the end and I'll leave my video on as well. Does that sound right?
Yeah,
great.
That's great.
And perhaps at the end, if you've still got time, Rabia, we could potentially do a little bit of Q&A if people still want to hang around right at the end. And I will unmute everyone at the end and then we can contribute that way. Because there's a nice small group of us. So I think that'd be great.
Yeah, sounds great.
Great. All right. I'm going to mute myself now. I'll catch you in a bit.
Okay, everyone. So coming to find a comfortable seat. It can be cross-legged. You can lie down if you can hear me clearly. And on this Sunday evening, I'd like you to simply bring a sense of ease into the body. So whatever that means for you, whether it's bringing the shoulders up to the ears and rolling them back down, whether it's moving the neck from side to just releasing any pent-up tension from the week. And as you do that, just gently bringing the eyelids to close or lowering the gaze, if that feels good for you. And as soon as you do so, allowing your internal environment to take center stage. And maybe at this outset, you begin to have a sense of what it feels like to come into the body, because we spend so much time up in the head. And so bringing your awareness now down from the skull, from the head, where the mind is ever powerful, down through the center of the eyebrows, over the tip of the nose, down through the mouth, the chin, past the throat to the center of the chest, and just tracing that central line. And somewhere between the chest and maybe the belly button, allowing the attention to drift and rest anywhere along that line. It's kind of like a temperature gauge, and it will be so different for everyone. Allowing your attention to rest somewhere in the midline. And when you find that sweet spot where that attention rests, beginning to now invite a breath in through the nose or mouth, and then gently releasing the breath. Receiving the breath on the inhale and just letting go on the exhale. And if you're choosing to exhale through the mouth, which always feels super good at the beginning of a breathwork practice, then choosing to do so with an audible sigh. And really, really letting go, giving yourself full permission for this short and sweet amount of time to breathe as a group, to connect as a community, as a mini community, and to come together to surrender to what it feels like to be in the present moment, fully present. Inhale of any length, exhale, let go. And as you do so, allowing the jaw to relax, the shoulders heavy away from the ears, and the focus on that sweet spot, somewhere between the chest and the belly button in that central line, wherever you feel the breath most active today. Inhaling cool breath in, exhaling warm breath out. as the throat and the lungs warm the breath, and exhale. This is layer 1, a lengthened and relaxed posture with permission to have arrived this evening and permission to let go so that you can make the most of this time out together. Finding the natural rhythm of your breath, you can stay here in layer 1 or progress with us onto layer 2. Layer 2, keeping the eyelids heavy and closed or lowered. Can you bring your hands to somewhere along this central line? So I like to bring my right hand to the chest and my left hand to the belly, palms of the hands on the front body. But you may prefer to have both hands on top of one another, both palms resting at the heart space, or both palms resting on the belly, or even to take both palms to the side ribs, wherever you feel that you can engage with the front body the most. And now, taking an inhale with me, so meeting us on the end of your next exhale, different for everyone, and inhaling for a count of 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pause for a moment on the top of the inhale, but relax every part of your body that doesn't need to be held apart from the breath. And now exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Inhale 1, 2, 3, and 4. Pausing at the top of the inhale, holding the breath but not holding the body. And now relax. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Visiting a slight pause at the end of the exhale on the empty. No tension. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, and pause. Exhale 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Now continuing with that breath, where the exhale, you don't need to count, but the exhale is slightly longer than the inhale. So taking an inhale of any length, visiting the pause at the top of the inhale in your own time, and exhaling, but following the exhale to its natural conclusion. And again, directing your attention to the belly area where more movement than the chest wall is required so that you can engage the full diaphragm breath. Lovely. Keep going. And you can relax your arms into the lap when you're ready, when your body says that you're ready to release, keeping a sensory memory of the front body moving down into the belly, and finding a rhythm that feels natural for you. Really nice. And this is layer 2, diaphragm breath, a full embodied breath where the exhale is extended to soothe the side of the nervous system that is usually on overdrive, but now you have given permission to simply release. And you can stay here in layer 2, having engaged the right muscle groups to soothe the nervous system. Or you can progress with us into layer 3. Layer 3 is the Ujjayi breath tonight. Keep the breath going as you listen. Ujjayi meaning victorious, and it has the power to both bring energy to you or relax any pent-up energy that's built up in the body and mind. So we're going to take 5 rounds of breath in a moment. And the first breath is going to be an inhale through the nose or mouth and an exhale through the mouth as if you were fogging up a mirror. So I want you to imagine you have a mirror in front of you and you're fogging the mirror. So when we're ready, breath 1, meeting me at the bottom of the exhale when you're ready, and taking an inhale, drinking the breath through the nose or mouth, up and up and up to the pause at the top, and then exhale onto a mirror as if you're fogging. When you finish the exhale, take your second breath. Inhale through the nose, filling the belly, fill the lungs, and then part the lips out onto the mirror, fogging the mirror. Third breath. Inhale through the nose or mouth. Now, as you exhale and fog that mirror, halfway through the exhale, when you're ready, simply close the lips and finish the exhale through the nose. See what that feels like. When we're ready now, fourth breath, inhale through the nose or mouth. Deep inhale. And again, exhale, open the lips, fog the mirror, and then close the lips halfway through, finishing fogging the mirror through the nose. It should feel really interesting, really soft. And the last breath, in and out through the nose. So fifth breath, inhale through the nose. And exhale, fog the mirror with all the attention that the breath is coming from the back of the throat. Lovely. And now returning to a spontaneous breath, in and out. Inhale, receive the breath. Exhale, let it go. And notice how the breath has become ever so slightly softer at the edges, ever so slightly softer. Good. And we'll take those 5 rounds again. So this is the introduction to Ujjayi breath. And feel free to give it as much power as you like without forcing the breath. There should be no force, simply receiving the inhale and allowing the exhale to fall away. But with a power to energize, here we go. Meeting me at the bottom of your next exhale. And now inhale all together as a group, filling the lungs, pausing at the top of the inhale, that's it. And then parting the lips, fog the mirror, soft and gentle out through the mouth. Good. Ending the exhale, can you take your second breath up and up and up to the top of the inhale? When you meet that space, that kumbhaka at the top, pause, and then exhale through an open mouth, fogging the mirror. Third breath, inhale when you're ready in your own time, all the way up, breath through the central line of the body. When you reach the top, exhaling through the mouth and experimenting with closing the lips halfway through, sending the rest of the breath through the nose. Good. Fourth breath, inhale through the nose, and this time visualize the breath going through the nose and settling on the back of the throat, feeling a kind of constrictive quality at the back of the throat as the breath is held. And then as you exhale, fog the mirror through the nose or mouth with an audible sigh, audible out. kind of like it hissing through the nose. And the last breath of 5, inhale through the nose or mouth, finding the breath trickling to the back of the throat, a kind of closing quality, and then release the breath with that emphasis on fogging the mirror through the nose or mouth. Lovely. And now returning again to your spontaneous breath that isn't meddled with and allowing it to be received on the inhale and leave you gently on the exhale. And as we come to finishing the practice shortly, let us visit the end of the exhale for the next few breaths, the same way we did at the beginning with the inhale. So this time, just inhaling as normal, as natural, and as you exhale, as you reach the end of the conclusion of the exhale, visit that moment of peace at the bottom of the exhale for a second or two longer. So all the emphasis on the emptying out, the release of any tension held in the body, any regret, anything that's holding you back, let it all go. Really nice. And a few deeper breaths to finish. Inhaling through the nose, allowing the attention to rest on that space at the bottom of the throat, and exhale, release. And again, lovely. And letting go, allowing the breath to settle and become quieter and softer until the moment that you feel ready to blink the eyes open and return to the day in your own time.
I'm really glad I unmuted myself, because it allowed me to really connect with the breath and actually not feel embarrassed about like breathing out and fogging up that make believe mirror in front of me. And I've said this to you before on a previous IG live that we did. There's the vernacular that you use, and the metaphors of drinking the breath and how it undulates. I really find useful, and it's so easy to get into a meditative state with your direction and your voice. It's really really useful.
That's so good. Yeah, I have to admit I was a bit spontaneous with my metaphor tonight.
Good.
I was just flowing, just in flow, so that was nice. And
great.
I think what's been really nice tonight for me teaching this breath is it's a breath that can be really harsh, right? So I mentioned that Darth Vader thing. And it's a breath that can be really harsh, but actually it can, if we start with that sensation of that imagery, like you said, of that make-believe mirror, I think this is the one of the first stepping stones to that. So it's nice. Thank you guys for starting the chat up, and I definitely have a few more minutes if Rupi does to sort of talk any specifics about that.
Totally. I've just allowed anyone who wants to ask a question or anything to you can unmute yourself. So if anyone does want to jump in or chime in at any point, you can unmute yourself, and we can have a conversation. And I think that this is another reason why I was quite keen to do it on Zoom, because you can actually, rather than us just having a conversation and answering a question that pops up, we can actually invite people to communicate at a more deeper level, at a more intimate level. So yeah, and I'll won't be able to share anything, but if you want to unmute yourself, you can. And yeah, you're more than welcome to ask a question, or if you don't want to unmute yourself, just pop something in the chat.
Just a quick question. Can you do this with eating food like afterwards, or would it be better to do it before eating food?
That's a good question.
Yeah, definitely. I think we'll both have something to say on that.
Yeah.
Well, Rupi more foodie than me.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to take like a good scientific approach, obviously. So your stomach, and not many people know about this, but if you've just eaten a meal, it sits under the left ribs, right? So your liver sits like under the right ribs, so it's protected from injury. And the stomach is like tucked right under the left ribs. And the diaphragm sits on top. And so when we're moving the diaphragm, and the diaphragm's like a kind of basically a dome of muscle that looks like this. When we're moving it, the diaphragm's doing this. So as you massage your stomach, if it's full, I have a feeling you're going to be quite uncomfortable having just had a meal. So there's no black and white answer. Of course, you can do breath work after a meal, in the sense that it's safe at all times. And in some ways, some of the research that we've done has shown that breath work either side of the meal can change the tolerance of the lower part of the food pipe, so that you have more resilience to prevent reflux. But my personal feeling is, because of what I've just described, that breath work straight after a meal will be uncomfortable, just as yoga would, or any form of exercise, because you have already moved into the part of your nervous system where you're in rest digest mode, having had a meal. So I would wait a window after a meal of anywhere, depending on your digestion, of between 30 minutes and an hour after a meal before breath work, unless you're doing it specifically for digestive health. So that would be what I suggest. And I don't know if Rupi has anything to add there.
I would echo that. I think a rough window, 45 minutes is good. I wouldn't do it after a particularly heavy meal as well, because you'll probably feel bloated. And I think that's perfect advice. So I don't have anything else to add there. And just in case anyone didn't realize at the start, Dr. Rabia is a gastroenterologist with a specialty in neurogastroenterology, which is something fairly uncommon. And that's why I just think it's great to have your particular perspective on this. So
cool, thank you. Yeah, I completely echo that. That makes a lot of sense. So I hope that answers your questions, Don.
Yeah, thank you very much for that.
No problem.
No problem at all.
Okay, so we've got, thank you, amazing, feel good, that's great. Didn't want to stop. Yeah, I don't know how long we were going for. I have no idea.
Yeah, I lost track of time. Yeah, no idea. There is a question actually about if you have a podcast or planning on doing one. Jem, we've already done one. So if you did want to listen to a bit more about Dr. Rabia's research and background, you can find it on the doctorskitchen.com website, or if you just Google Dr. Rabia podcast, it will most likely come up, unless you've done another one recently. But yeah.
And what are the main benefits of these exercises? Great question. Oh my gosh, what are not the benefits?
Yeah.
Okay, so breath work. And again, Rupi will have something, you have something to add to, right? So I think that the breath is so interesting because it's under both conscious and, do I say subconscious or unconscious? I always get mixed up between the two. Subconscious control? Yes. between you're just laughing, not even answering. Between subconscious and conscious control. So we're breathing all the time, but we can also alter our breath, right, when we think about it. So I think that there are the benefits of this. One is we become more embodied when we pay attention to the breath, right? So as soon as you'll notice, as soon as you bring your attention away from the constant monkey up here, down into a sense of what the breath is, it's immediately bringing you into the present moment. So like Rupi said, he felt that there was a sense of meditation, and many people use the breath as a meditation anchor. So I think that's one of the big benefits. And that's the benefit of layer one, really, is like you could just bring attention to the breath at any time of day, and that will feel good for you. And that will probably be enough without even changing it. And then the next layer is like, okay, now we're changing the breath. Now we're making a conscious effort to manipulate, to change the inhale or the exhale ratio. We're making a deliberate, conscious decision to move the breath into different parts of the body. And in doing so, again, you start to become more embodied, have a sense of presence in the body, but you're also changing the levels of the gas in the blood. So one thing I really like is that as you breathe deeper, you blow off more carbon dioxide, and therefore you'll find you can probably hold your breath for longer than you think you can. So that's some of the benefits, I think, as a brief answer.
Yeah. I would echo that, and also say, getting used to exercising your parasympathetic system will have a multitude of benefits that I don't think has been fully explained by the scientific literature at this point. The one that comes to mind is reducing the activity of your digestive tract, which will reduce alarm signals to your brain. That has an impact on your anxiety and your mood and your stress sort of response. Because if your gut's not feeling right, your brain's not feeling right. And there's a number of communication pathways between that, the microbes, the vagus nerve, and some other indirect mechanisms too. The other thing I think is by constantly trying to expand the sort of aeration of your lungs, you're actually inadvertently improving your sort of exercise tolerance as well. There, some really interesting research looking at athletes and who perform breathwork exercise quite regularly demonstrate, it doesn't massively increase their exercise capacity, but it definitely improves their ability to tolerate strain when working out. So I think there are some intangible benefits, whether that's related to, capacity of lungs in this current pandemic. I don't think we can say that at this point, but it's certainly useful. And just from an anecdotal point of view, my own anecdotal point of view, and lots of patients that I've seen as well, it just works on stress and anxiety, which I think we all suffer from as part of just living. So yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Does this have an impact? Oh, sorry. Just making sure that I'm not missing any questions. Someone's asking about a cooking session. Yeah, I'm doing a cooking session probably next week on Friday, so you can look out for that. Chrissy has asked, what is the best length of time for a breathwork session? And Chevy's asked about the impact on the immune system as well. Another great couple of questions.
I'm going to say that there's no best length of time, if I'm honest, which is not evading your question, I promise. I just don't think that it's helpful to say what's the best length of time, because it's like if I tell you it's 15 minutes or half an hour or 10 minutes, then on the days that you don't feel like you can set aside that time or you don't remember, then you might feel like you haven't achieved that, and then we invite a sense of like failure in, and then it's like not beneficial. Whereas sometimes, like, so Rupi and I were talking, I think it was in our second or third session, and I remember he'd just come back from work and was like quite stressed, and we were talking about inadvertently breath holding, right? Like that sometimes you don't even know you're holding your breath.
Yeah.
And I mentioned that like just one sigh resets the cycle, what we call the respiratory cycle. So even one deep sigh, deep inhale through the nose, exhale sigh. I mean, that could be a length, that could be enough. And then pranayama can go on. You could do it for an hour. There's a lot of people actually guiding 1 hour breath work on Instagram. So I would say an hour is probably max. I don't think I can do more than an hour in one go.
Yeah. I mean, I would say I agree with the sighing, I think, and I do that actually when I'm washing my hands at work, or if I'm taking out a cannula and some equipment to do a procedure. I'm actually quite conscious of my breath, because it's actually a time where you actually give yourself a moment in your busy day to focus on your breath. But in answer to people's questions about how long is a good breath session, I think the minimum amount that you can do on most days, whether that's 60 seconds or 5 minutes or longer, if you can really do that, and try and make it a habit, that would be fantastic, because it's not about the length of one breath session. I think it's about the regularity by which you can do breath work. And this is why, another reason, from a purely selfish point of view, I love doing this every week on Sundays with you after work, because it's a great sort of way to unwind at the end of a busy week. So yeah.
No, I'm really glad you mentioned that, because when I was thinking length, I was thinking the actual individual, but it's all about repetition.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the immune system comment, how interesting. So we mentioned the immune system earlier in relation to gut health, because so much of your immune system is in your digestive tract. But in terms of actual effective breath work on the immune system, I think that we need to think about that from a bird's eye point of view, rather than like a small point of view. So if you were to say, has breath work, can it relieve you of a cold or a certain type of problem with the immune system? I'd have to say, well, I'd have to look it up and find out that question. But the breath impacts your autonomic nervous system, which I like to remember is the automatic nervous system. So it's the nervous system that is responsible for all the, your heartbeat, your breath, your digestion, everything you don't have to think about. It's automatic. The breath cycle impacts that through the vagus nerve, as Rupi mentioned. And because it impacts that, your autonomic nervous system impacts your immune system. So everything is linked through that. And I think that's the best bird's eye view of it, to be honest. And anything more specific, I would have to find like specific papers about, I think.
Yeah, I don't have anything extra to add about breathwork in particular for the immune system, apart from what you said. Anything that benefits your gut health will likely benefit the functioning of your immune health through improvement of the microbial community. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Thank you so much for watching this video. There's so many others for you to enjoy right here. Check out thedoctorskitchen.com, sign up to the newsletter where I give science-based recipes every single week. There's a podcast, there's 2 books, there's loads more content on social media, doctors_kitchen, and I hope to see you there.